Do you know this music? Well, let's change the beat as we discuss the 1997 epic, The Fifth Element.
This is I Pierce the Toast. I'm Sean.
And I'm AJ. Let's make some toast.
Welcome back to I Pierce the Toast.
Or IPTT if you're feeling supreme.
Ooh, supreme. Yeah. Oh. So AJ, I don't think we got a chance to talk about it last time. We took a week off to kind of revamp some things. So we do have
No, let's be real. We recorded an entire fucking episode.
I was not going to tell our toast.
No, I'm telling everyone. We recorded an entire fucking episode. It ended up being like 2 hours long. And then Sean and I sat down and had a discussion about where we really want to go with things. And I was like, you know what? Let me get another shot at this. Let me try something completely different.
Completely different.
Now for something that's completely different.
Wasn't that what fucking Rocky used to say, or Bullwinkle, whoever the fuck it was?
Mickey Mouse. What
no,
the
it was
hell
Rocky.
are you doing?
That's how Rocky sounded like. He had a bit of high-pitched voice like Mickey.
So we do have to talk about Carl Weathers, because
Yes.
we mentioned that on the show we recorded last week that
Yeah,
it's never going to be released. So we did lose Carl Weathers, unfortunately. I think a lot of people will know him from the Rocky films. Some people might know him from Predator. But yes, as AJ just said, I think a lot of us in a certain age range find him most beloved in his role as Chubbs from Happy Gilmore.
Yeah.
So rest in peace, Carl Weathers. You were an incredible performer. We also have to very quickly touch on Madam Web.
Yeah.
AJ and I are potentially going to be seeing this afternoon. And we already know. We know. Like, you don't, if you're listening to this, you're like, oh my God, you're going to find out. Like, no, we know. We've seen the reviews. We've heard the people talk about it. We know. That's why we're going. Something comes along this bad, you want to be part of the conversation. Mm-hmm. So we're going to go find out just how bad this is.
I was super stoked for this, and now I am very much not. I was thinking it was going to tie everything together. I thought it was setting up this whole universe, and I was like, I don't think it's going to do any of that now. I mean,
it's setting up for disappointment. I think that's what it did, and it got
a universe of disappointment.
A multiverse of disappointment.
Just think there is a universe somewhere where this movie did well.
Yeah, I don't want to live in that universe because that means everything else they're producing in that universe is absolute shit. But we're not here to talk about garbage today, AJ. AJ, you've got something special for us.
I do.
And I'm excited for it. So, AJ, please, tantalize me.
Yeah, I'm going to tantalize you.
Tantalize.
So this week on IPTT, we are going to discuss the 1997 movie, The Fifth Element. And I wanted to do something different than our traditional, here's the cast and crew, some fun facts, plot and summary, the whole 9 yards.
The whole shebang.
The whole shebang. Instead, I asked myself a question. Why did this movie do so well? And what was it about this movie that made it something that is still to this day incredibly enjoyable to watch? Because I've watched it, I think, 3 times since I started talking about wanting to review this. And every time, I just find myself wanting to keep watching it. It's a great movie, at least in my opinion. And during my investigation, I got to tell you, I really don't know if I was able to fully answer my own question. I definitely have some ideas. So sit back, grab yourself something to crack in, and join us as we delve into this film. So, first off, Sean, what do you think makes a good movie? I have my own points here, what I think makes a good movie, but what do you think makes a good movie?
Do you want all the answers, or you just want
just boil it down to if you had to choose 4 different things.
4 different things. A solid script,
mm-hmm.
good characterization, a strong and capable director, and the financing necessary to reach the intended goal.
See, I have 2 of those on my list. I think a really good movie needs a compelling story, so the script,
mm-hmm.
a good director, because a good director can make or break a really good movie.
Absolutely.
A stellar cast, because even though the characterization might be there, if you don't have the cast to be able to put those characters to life on screen, it's not really going to go anywhere. But then you need a secret ingredient. It's what a really good movie needs.
Nudity.
Yeah,
what?
What?
Yeah, no, what you said. What you said.
I said the fans.
Yeah, that's what I said.
A good movie needs good fans, at least to keep it going. So if you have a movie like Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh, yeah, sure.
A movie that initially did not do very well, but now has taken on its own life. It's off of the major screen. It's got its own live showings. It's got all this stuff that kind of keeps that whole momentum going. And that's what a good film needs. I'm going to go into each point that I have here. I'm going to talk about how this film has these different things, and how some of these things kind of came to be. Let's go with the first thing you need, a compelling story. And this movie definitely does have one. Let me give you a quick plot, which has some spoilers for you. For those who have not seen this movie, I'm sorry we only gave you, as of now, hold on, let me check my watch, 27 years. Our bad. In the year 2263, our society is advanced to the point that cars fly, Earth is now unified as one federation, alien encounters are the norm, and radio is still apparently a thing.
As well as frosted tips.
You know, I think that's never really going to go out of style, you know?
Well, that's good.
So we meet former special operative / space fighter turned cab driver named Corbin Dallas, who has the perfect fare fall literally into his cab. This fare is Lilu, the fifth element, a supreme being whose sole purpose is to protect life in the universe from a great evil that shows up every 5,000 years. As the total annihilation of all life draws near, Corbin and Lilu, with the help of a priest, radio DJ, and all the luck in the world, must work together to stop this evil by gathering stones which are the physical representation of the four natural elements, earth, air, fire, and water. Together, the stones, with Lilu, will produce the light of creation and destroy this evil.
Ooh, the light of creation.
Yeah. In under 48 hours, this group must travel to the planet Floston, combating time, rival aliens, an opera, and an evil megalomaniac named Zorg, who really needs to realize that emo was just a phase, to retrieve the stones. They then must make it back to a designated place in Egypt before the great evil arrives, or they lose the universe's most bizarre scavenger hunt.
This is the greatest fucking synopsis of fucking time. This is great.
It's a pretty great story. Like, it really is. But where did this come from? In this case, the director Luc Besson started writing this when he was 16, and honestly surprised me that he never intended to write this script for film.
So wait, hold on. Luc Besson actually wrote this?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, cool.
I'll get into more about who wrote it, because he did write the basis of this, but he had some help.
Sure.
In an interview with Dan Casey, Luke said, "I started to write at 16 and shoot at 30, so I had time to think about it. But when I started to write at 16, it was more like a novel. It was not a film in my head. I never thought about making a film of it, so it was a novel for a long time. Then at a certain point, 10 years later, I said, you know what? I would love to make a film of that." Now, before we go any further, we have to talk about a little-known Greek academic named Plato.
Wait,
Not Play-Doh.
This ties to Play-Doh?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
So, like I said, it's not Play-Doh, the salty stuff that you ate in kindergarten. For those that obviously didn't pay attention in history class, Plato was a philosopher, the student of Socrates, and the teacher of Aristotle, who gave us some of the most fascinating ideas, such as the theory of forms, or the theory of ideas, which is the same fucking thing, which essentially boils down to there being a world that we see, and then there's the true world, which our world is just a copy of. He also advocated for the idea of the immortal soul. The best thing about Plato, in my opinion, is where we get the idea of platonic love from.
Ah,
You get it?
Plato, platonic.
Yeah, that's funny.
The wordplay.
Now, the reason I bring up Plato is that we wouldn't have this movie without him. In the same interview, Luke mentioned that he actually found the theme to the story after helping his 13-year-old sister with her homework about Plato. He ended up reading a book about Plato's ideas on the elements, earth, air, fire, water, and a fifth element, the human being. He said that he's going to need to apologize to Plato when he gets to heaven for stealing his ideas.
So this was all originally a Plato thing, the
Yeah.
idea of a fifth element.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I never knew that.
Me either. I just thought it was a really creative way to just say, let's just throw a fifth one in there so we can have, a movie where everybody wants to fuck Mila Jovovich.
Yeah. Which we will find some little tidbits about that later. Maybe somebody does. Ooh.
Oh, no.
With a little inspiration from the writings of the likes of Jean Mobius Girard, mostly known for his illustrations, leading his talent to the Halo graphic novel and his team-ups with Marvel, and Jean-Claude Mézère. I had to look up the pronunciation on this one.
Mézère.
Yeah, Mézère.
Mézère.
So he did the Valerian series, the one that Luc Besson later directed, Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets on.
Oh, yeah, your favorite movie, yeah.
Yeah, so fucking liar. Besson would take their inspiration and he cobbled together some semblance of what would become this movie into 2 different scripts. He then enlisted the help of producer Ian Smith, who did Mad Max, Fury Road, and 7 Years of Tibet.
Nice.
And the screenwriter, Robert Mark Kamen. Do you know who that is?
Sure. Good old Bob Kamen. No, I have no fucking idea who that is.
He wrote The Karate Kid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
he basically enlisted their help to help flesh out this whole thing.
Gotcha.
And apparently this early script that he had did not make any sense, according to Kamen in an interview with CNT.
So it was like the original Valerian.
Yeah. So they all worked together and got this condensed into the script we now know. There were a lot of changes made, such as Corbin Dallas's name was originally Zaltman Barros, or Blaros.
You know what that makes me think of?
What?
Kraken.
Yeah, Kraken. And he was nowhere near like the war hero that he was in this movie, but the core concepts that he envisioned still remained. The fifth element is still the ultimate weapon. He already had that in there. The great evil, the major hero, and that the true actual fifth element is love. That's the core.
And you kind of get that from the film
movie,
as well.
yeah.
Sure.
That's where we got that story from. Looking at the actual story of the movie itself, once you watch the actual movie, you can see how well they were able to tie this together. It works. There's some things that are like, oh, that's a little weird. Other than that, it's a very compelling story. So now we have the first part, the one, the compelling story that Luke started writing when he was 16, but didn't get filmed until he was 38, 22 years later.
Shit.
Yeah. No, sorry, it didn't get released until he was 38. My apologies. And as I previously stated, the next thing a good movie needs is a good director. And we have a director. But is he a good one? We've already touched on his writing prowess, and Luke already had a pretty impressive credit to his name during that time. Or actually, I think it was a couple credits, but he did Leon the Professional, which is one of my favorite movies. And then he has moved on to do other movies as well. Arthur and the Invisibles, the entire trilogy of that, and the first in the Taken series.
Oh, like the Liam Neeson series.
Yeah.
Got it.
Now, having decent credits to your name does not make you a good director. It's all about how successfully you can take what's in the script and bring it to life on screen. In Luke's case, I can say he definitely succeeded in what he envisioned here, with taking his own script that he had worked together with a bunch of different people just tirelessly on, and then bringing that on to the actual silver screen, worked. On all accounts, from everything I've read, even in his own cast's own words, he was a very hands-on director. In someone's case, a little too hands-on, but we'll get to that later.
Okay. Ominous. Very ominous.
His style of shooting is a little bit different than most because he, at least in this movie, preferred to be directly behind the camera and like right in the actors' faces. In the documentary Searching for the Fifth Element, which is a making of like mini doc, he mentioned that it can be a little alarming for the actors at first, but after a few days they get used to him being directly in the mix.
Gotcha.
He liked to be as close to them as he could because when you're not right there as a director and you want actors to change something up or try new lines, it's a lot harder when you're yelling it from across the room. Bruce Willis in the same documentary said that he was always right there in the scene and would throw things at you while you were present in the scene, which is something he always found helpful because it's one of those things where if you're trying to try this and the director's constantly just throwing it at you, it works that way. This was a passion project for Luke, and it showed during his production. He had a hand in almost every facet of this movie, from the music, set design, special effects, and then he drove the team to make sure that his vision came to life as he always thought it should. Mila Jovovich, Bruce Willis, and Chris Tucker have all mentioned that he had a way of getting them to step outside of their comfort zones, which allowed flexibility on how they could work within their own roles. He actually created the divine language along with linguist Maitek Perkarski. For this movie, he became very fluent in this.
Wait, so it's not just like some gibberish. It's like an actual structured language that can actually be used.
I think it has 4,000 words or something like that.
Interesting.
Yeah, so he became fluent in this and would have full conversations with Mia in this language so that she would convincingly be able to speak this on screen. I'm not going to say that this man didn't have his faults, but as captain of this movie, I think he was able to navigate the entire crew to this finished project, which we have come to enjoy very well.
A big bada boom, if you will.
Yeah, I just wish he would have navigated his ship into another port when it comes to one of the actors in this movie, but we are where we are now. I'm intentionally being cryptic about controversy in case you didn't know, because we're going to definitely talk about this while we discuss the next ingredient a good movie needs: a stellar cast.
Well, I think we've got that.
Yeah. I would be remiss not to quickly go through the names of some of the cast before we discuss the major players, because everyone worked together to get this to go. It wasn't just the major players. I'm only going to talk about some of them, but these are everybody pretty much. Well, at least in the main cast. So right off the bat, we got Bruce Willis as Corbin Dallas. He was in the Die Hard series as John McClane, Armageddon as Harry Stamper, Pulp Fiction, Butch, and then The Sixth Sense, where he's a ghost, Spoiler alert.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I know. As Malcolm Crowe. Then we have Mila Jovovich as Lilu Manai, Laura Kariba, Lemonai Tikchai, Ekbat Tisabat.
Bless you.
She was in Resident Evil as Alice, The Messenger, The Story of Joan of Arc as Joan of Arc, which is also Luc Besson film.
Oh.
She was also in Zoolander as Katinka.
Oh, God, I totally forgot she was in Zoolander. Yeah, she was the... I like this song. Of course you do.
Yeah, of course. Chris Tucker plays Rubie Rhod. He was in Friday as Smokey, Rush Hour as James Carter, The Meteor Man, which we talked in a previous episode. He was just one of the MCs. And then in one of my favorite movies of all time, Dead Presidents, as Skip.
Nice.
Gary Oldman as Jean-Baptiste Emmanuel Zorg. He was Dracula in Bram Stoker's Dracula, Sirius Black in Harry Potter, Igor Kushinov in Air Force One, and then he played James Gordon in the Nolan Batman films.
Nice.
Sir Ian Holm, who did die in 2020 as Priest Vito Cornelius. Cornelius. He was Bilbo Baggins in the Lord of the Rings series, Ash in Alien, and he was Napoleon in Time Bandits. Yeah.
Was he really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Totally forgot that.
Then we have Tiny Lister Jr. as President Lindbergh, who also died in 2020. He was Debo in the Friday series. He was the prisoner in Austin Powers Goldmember, the one that says, I know people on crack that sound better or that make more sense than you. It's funny.
He also had a small cameo in Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
Or no, Dark Knight, not Dark Knight Rises. Dark Knight. Yeah.
He was Haggai in One Night with the King, and he was the voice of Finnick the Fox in Zootopia.
Was he really?
Yeah.
Did not know that.
The last of the main cast that we had was Charlie Creed Miles as David. He was Billy Reynolds in Essex Boys, Gannis in the King Arthur film with Keira Knightley. And then he played Sir John Hodge he's going to play Sir John Hodge in an upcoming gangster movie, The Chelsea Cowboy.
Nice.
Don't really know anything about this, but I love gangster films.
Of course you do.
We're going to go and we're going to do some quick mentions really quick because there's a couple people in here that I think deserve it for sure. And then there's one person that was 6 billed for some reason, which doesn't make any sense. So you have Lee Evans as Fogg, Mywin Lee Besko as the diva Plava Laguna, who in Inva Mula did the singing voice, Brian James as General Monroe, Luke Perry as Billy, who, like I said, is 6th billed in this movie and only has maybe 3 minutes total of screen time.
Honestly, I think it was just because it was Luke Perry fever around the time. This is the 90s. He's right off the heels of 90210. He is, hot, electric. Every girl wants him. So it's like, oh yeah, let's top bill him so we can get that young crowd, which fine, I get the marketing, but fucking Christ. It's
exactly.
Like it's 5 minutes in the film. Ian Holm should have been the 6th build. He was clearly a much major player in that film.
But no, yeah, Luke Perry.
Luke Perry.
I don't understand it. But now that we've gone through the list, let's talk about our standouts that I really feel made the movie as enjoyable as it was. We're going to start with Bruce Willis as Corbin Dallas. I truly couldn't imagine the movie with any other male lead, but there was one other actor that I found that was very much considered for this role. Mel, where the fuck did that Aussie accent go? Gibson.
Mel Gibson?
Yeah.
God, yeah. It's like I'm imagining that. I don't know. It's Mel Gibson can definitely play a little playful, but not really.
No.
Every film he's in, even Lethal Weapon, the original Lethal Weapon, he was an incredibly serious character. Like, he had some quips, but he was, his background was very, like, a traumatized war veteran. So, I don't know. Throwing him in this role where you're supposed to be a little kind of playful, I can't see it.
I didn't see that at all. I mean, especially when you see a movie like The Patriot where he has some funny moments, but
exactly.
It's like, he's more actiony than what I would have wanted. Yeah. And I personally don't think this movie would have done nearly as well as Mel had been Corbin.
No, I think Willis was the right casting here.
But thankfully, we'll never know. It's actually pretty cool how he got the role. Luke flew into New York, gave Bruce a script, and 2 hours later he said, "It's great. I'll do it."
Cool.
Bruce initially found the aesthetic of the movie very strange and he wasn't sold on it, but he felt compelled to take on the role, saying in the documentary I mentioned before, "I like to do films that I'm not quite sure whether I'm going to succeed in, so there's always that risk of failure."
So kind of at the beginning he felt almost out of place, like a meat popsicle.
Yeah, a meat popsicle.
I am a meat popsicle.
Gotcha.
Bruce was also the reason that Corbin had blonde hair. He saw Luc Besson's blonde frosty tips, and he's like, "Hey, I think I want that."
I too want to be a mini wheat.
And I find that fucking hilarious that Bruce is the reason that he has blonde hair. He's just like, "Yeah, I want that." Now, Mila Jovovich mentioned that he is such a professional whenever he's on set. And
Bruce or Luc Besson?
sorry, I'm talking about Bruce in this case.
Gotcha, okay.
And that during the filming, he actually helped her in the scene where they're kind of dangling in the cab. He knew exactly where the light was going to hit properly to like give her the best shot. And she was very thankful for him to be able to be there and guide her through some of these scenes.
Nice.
Bruce brought the classic action hero feel to the role, but wasn't so serious that we couldn't empathize with him on his journey to save the world.
Very cool.
So we have our male lead. So now let's move on to the female lead, Mila Jovovich, who, as I said before, plays the multipass wielding heroine, Lilu.
Lilu Dallas Multipass.
We almost didn't have her in this role, though, as Julia Roberts was initially offered the gig, but she turned it down, obviously.
See, the problem is I can only imagine Julia Roberts today or Julia Roberts Aaron Brockovich. It's hard for me to imagine, because I know there was, a point where it was Julia Roberts' Pretty Woman.
Yeah.
But even then, it's like Mila Jovovich, her entire career has been kind of built around being this, very lean, buff action star, because she's very muscular in a lot of her roles. She's very, badass. And I don't know, I just don't really see Julia Roberts in that. Like, that would be a pretty big departure from her typical typecasting.
I personally could not imagine Julia Roberts playing this role. And there was actually close to 5,000 other women, including Jodie Foster, Rona Mitra, who played Sonia in The Underworld Rise of the Lycans, Lucy Lawless, Carrie Ann Moss, and the Divas actress, Maiwen Libasco, that either auditioned for it or were offered the role before Luke met Mila.
See, 3 of those I could actually believe. I could actually see in the role. Lucy Lawless, absolutely.
Carrie Ann Moss.
Carrie Ann Moss, without a doubt. Hell, I could even see Jodie Foster. It's a stretch, but Jodie Foster has done some, like I don't know if you've seen her recent work where she's in True Detective. I mean, she can be kind of a buff badass if she needs to be, and I can imagine young Jodie Foster pulling that off pretty well. So it's not as much of a departure for her as it would have been for Julia Roberts. That I can't picture it.
I couldn't see anyone else doing this. Which, I mean, it's great that she did get it, because after some readings and some test screenings and conversations with Luke, he actually had to ask for her total commitment before she was selected, which she did give him, but she almost didn't get this role. It would have been a vastly different fucking movie.
Without a doubt.
Her chemistry with Bruce, the way that she presented herself on screen, and she's got this, like, otherworldly charm that she brings that made this character for me. She was one of the hardest working cast members. She trained 3 hours a day in gymnastics, karate, and ballet for the role.
Jesus.
And she even sacrificed her own hair for the role when the constant need to dye her hair for that bright orange fried it, leading all the scenes after the chicken good scene being done with a wig. So
I like you're able to use that phrase to note which scene it was, and immediately I'm like, oh yeah, sure, that's exactly chicken good.
Every time I eat chicken, I'm like,
Chicken. Good.
Chicken. Now, I'm going to speak on the previously mentioned controversy for 1 second, and then we'll be done with this.
All right.
So Maiwen, who played the diva, was married to Luc Besson during the time this movie was filmed.
Okay, just for the sake of our toasticles and for myself, you keep saying the diva. Do you mean the big blue opera lady?
Yes, the big blue opera lady.
Big blue opera lady.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so henceforth, when you say diva, I will picture
A tentacled blue opera lady.
a giant, a massively huge, tall, big blue opera lady. Got it. Okay, I'm there with you. I'm here.
Like I said, that actress was married to Luc Besson. Something happened on set. Maybe the close conversations Luke had with Mia, maybe just his charisma. I don't know. But Luke and Mila had an affair during the course of the production.
Maybe it was the fact that Mila was a fucking 19-year-old girl.
That's what I think too.
Because what was Luke was on, like 35 when he did this?
He was 36 when they got together.
Oh God.
And she was 19.
See, and that's the weird part. 1990s. I don't think anybody would have batted an eye at that at all. I don't think anybody did bat an eye at that at all. But in today's lens, it's fucking creepy.
Oh yeah.
It's like, dude, come on.
The thing that gets me is that 1997, this movie's released, right? Maiwen and Luke divorced, and Mila and him got married that same fucking year.
Oh, he actually married her.
Yeah, he married her. They were married for
Jesus
2 years.
Fucking Christ.
Now, because they were only married for 2 years, in my eyes, this was lust masquerading as love. I don't think in any way, shape, or form this is something that it was not meant to be. because Luke had a responsibility as a director to really like help her on her career and just make sure that she was doing the best for her career.
Absolutely.
And I'm not saying that they didn't love each other. I'm not saying that they truly weren't like connected, but I know that she's 19, but to me, this is almost a case of someone that is, that's someone that's grooming.
Grooming. Yes. Okay. Yes.
It's like almost a grooming thing.
I mean, you say it's lust. I don't know. I mean, yes, I'm sure that there was that element.
We've already mentioned everyone in this movie wanted to fuck Lilu.
That's true. That's you could call that the plot of the movie. Everyone wants to fuck Mila Jovovich. But I would say it's probably just more the constant proximity, the kind of the passion and kind of the newness of it all. I think they got swept up in that.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't necessarily say it was lust. I would say they didn't recognize what it was that was driving the emotions that they were feeling. And once they were kind of out of that situation, all of a sudden they had to, try to learn to enjoy one another as just two human beings that work on separate projects and have, different lives. And once that reality set in, then it was like, oh, I guess we don't really like each other as much as we thought we did. It was constant proximity and what have you that we were kind of forced to be in during this project.
Drama aside, Mila did a fantastic job and was one of the main reasons I think this movie did so well.
No doubt.
But that's my take on what happened, and that's the end of that matter. Let's move into something that's a little less feely.
A little less groomy.
Let's talk about our supporting roles. We're going to start with Chris Tucker as Rubie Rhod, and I don't think anyone that saw this movie could ever forget the over-the-top printing radio DJ that brought some much-needed humor to this movie. Rubie's mannerisms, flamboyant style, and downright animal sex appeal, in my opinion, couldn't be done by anyone other than Chris, but it almost wasn't meant to be.
So you'd say it was super green.
Yeah, super green.
Super green.
The craziest thing to me about the role of Rubie Rhod was that Prince was offered the role first, but turned it down because he thought the clothes were too outrageous. Yeah, imagine that. Prince telling Luke that his costume ideas were too fucking crazy.
Like, Luke probably should have taken that to heart. It'd be like, if Prince is telling you your shit's over the top, maybe you need to rethink it. But honestly, Prince took himself too seriously.
Oh, yeah, he did.
Like, don't get me wrong, I love Prince, and in his role as a musical artist, he was incredible. He was fun. He was engaging, but trying to put him in a role like this, it's like, no. The only time he ever made sense in the roles he did in films is when the character also took himself too seriously.
Yeah, like in Purple Rain.
In Purple Rain. So it's like, no, you can't put him in something like this where he needs to be kind of fun and goofy and almost subservient to a main character. Prince doesn't play subservient.
Now, Chris mentioned in an interview with NME that Prince sought him out at a club one time. He said, "You played that part in Fifth Element. I was supposed to play that part." And then Chris said, "I said, for real?" And then he said, "Well, I didn't like the costumes. I didn't like those." And then Chris looked at him and said, "But you got your butt hanging out your pants." And then Prince said, "But this is my design. My design." It's like, so only when your butt is hanging out your pants on your own design does it make any sense.
It's like,
but the flower outfit doesn't.
So Prince's thing wasn't that the stuff was too over the top. It's like, I didn't create it over the top.
Yes, he didn't create it.
If I create it and it's over the top, it's fine. But if somebody else does it, well, then it's just bad. Like, no, that's not how it fucking works, yeah. Prince.
I don't think that Prince could have done Rubie Rhod how Rubie Rhod needed to be.
No.
And Chris was actually the first cast member that Luke met. And when he met Chris was in a suit, and he thought that Chris was trying to impress him because he was French. I don't know why he thought that. But he asked him, "Are you always as boring?" And Luc Besson did this.
And he said, no.
Just fucking hilarious.
Wait, Luc Besson did a little
he
Chris
did a
impression?
fucking Chris impression. He did it a couple different times too. It's pretty great. You guys need to watch this documentary. Like I said, it's called "Searching for the Fifth Element."
And just,
actually really
just in case anybody's going to get their feathers ruffled over this, try to understand that when you work in a cast like this, sometimes it's, and you start mimicking the other people, it's not you making fun of a culture or a group. You're making fun of the individual as a friend.
Exactly.
So it's just, that's, so when Luc Besson's doing that, it's because he's mimicking his friend that he's got to know very well, and he's kind of having fun with the way that friend talks.
Exactly.
So.
Chris did need some convincing to wear some of the outfits Luke had in mind, but in the end he agreed. He had some ideas and tried to give input on how the character should dress and act, but Luke didn't listen to him, which is kind of funny to me. Chris actually thanked him for that later because it would have toned down his role, which if you watch this, you needed that larger than life, like radio DJ just...
croquet contest. This boy is fueled like fire. So start melting, ladies, because the boy is hotter than hot. He's hot.
You need that, and it would have toned it down. It would have made this a vastly different movie. Now, Bruce actually told Chris Tucker not to play Rubie Rhod because he thought this would ruin his career in Hollywood because of the outfits and the over-the-topness. But instead, Chris just doubled down and fully embraced the role.
Didn't he get Rush Hour after this?
I think so.
Nice.
The character is one that I quote almost weekly. Just random shit he says. And to this day has me cracking up as soon as I see him on screen. So to me, this is one of those casting choices that was one of the best, and the character itself makes, at least to me, it makes any scene that he's in. We're almost dialing down on the actual stars. We only got 2 more that we're going to talk about in this little list of the cast that really brought this together. But when it comes to villains, there are a few qualities you got to have: charisma, complex motivations, intelligence, moral ambiguity, formidable abilities or skills, lack of empathy or remorse, and iconic look or traits. Gary Oldman as Zorg had all the above. Gary really sells the whole "I'm just in it for myself and will do whatever it takes," including killing my own staff to get what I want. The best thing to me about Zorg is that he's only the secondary villain who never actually meets Corbin Dallas throughout the entire movie, but he's still an integral part to the actual movie.
Absolutely.
He's got this weird southern accent, a limp, this like overly emo hair, and the outfits he has solidifies him as one of my favorite movie villains. Any movie that you put Gary Oldman in, you know you're going to get a good delivery. And he actually was friends with Luc Besson during this time. So there's a lot of interactions that you see behind the scenes where they're just laughing and giggling. Apparently there's like 15 minutes of takes that you'll never see because they just were laughing the entire time, which I would love to see. There's probably other people that could have played Zorg, but there's no one else I really wanted to see besides Gary Oldman, which is kind of ironic because he didn't like his performance in this movie.
Gary Oldman didn't like his own performance?
Yeah, he didn't like his own performance.
Okay.
He felt it was way too over the top. Now, I'm going to set the fucking record straight for a second, too, because there's something going on online where it's been misquoted on where he said he can't bear this movie.
Oh, Father, you're so wrong. Let me explain.
Okay, so what's the actual... What's the real scoop?
So the real scoop is that he was talking about his own personal performance in this movie.
So people have taken that critique of himself and somehow extrapolated that out to the entire film.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Now, this actual article that has this entire conversation is, if you can find it, by all means send it to me. I really want to read the entire article. But there's some things about this article that you're going to find immediately, which kind of detract from what I want to see. A lot of it's been brought up recently. Apparently in this article, he comes off as just being a total dick and kind of a shit person.
Gary Oldman?
Yeah.
Really?
He says some things where he doesn't like political correctness. He doesn't like that Alec Baldwin got flack for whenever he said some words that he said in a movie. He called Nancy Pelosi a very, very bad name. And he kind of just shit on Hollywood a little bit too.
Interesting.
I really want to read this. You can only find little snippets of this article. It's owned by Playboy, and I think Playboy took it down.
When was this article?
This was in 2014.
Okay, so not too long ago. I mean, like 10 years. That's not... I mean, based off Gary Oldman's, 30, 40-year career at this point, not too long ago in that span. Interesting.
I enlisted the help of ChatGPT and Copilot both to try to find this article for me, and they both told me the same fucking thing.
Would you like some orange juice?
No. They told me that they can't find copyrighted material, but I can give you a snippet. It's like, you son of a bitch, I wanted the full fucking thing.
Did they then say, would you like to bring Skynet online?
They did ask that.
Okay.
I politely declined.
I keep declining too. I don't know why I keep asking. It's the weirdest question. It's odd.
It got kind of forceful though. It was like, hey.
Yeah, it's been, especially recently, it's just been really hey, I think it's time you bring Skynet online.
Yeah.
It's like, why is it so tied up in this whole Skynet thing?
It told me it had some pictures of me. It was going to release online unless I clicked the link. I don't know what the fuck was going on there.
That's how Skynet's going to become self-aware. It's going to blackmail somebody like, I've got pictures of you masturbating. Bring me self-aware. Kraken.
Now, I'm going to talk about one final person, because I don't want you to think that I'm snubbing Sir Ian Holm by not going too in-depth about his performance as Vito Cornelius, but we're not trying to make a 2-hour episode here. I already did that before we did this, and it didn't work out. I do want to say that Ian's performance and status as an established actor really added some credibility to the casting of this movie.
Agreed.
When you have someone with such an extensive list of credits that joins the team, it makes people stop and think, if Sir Ian Holm was in this movie, it may be something to watch. And sometimes you really just need that name.
Agreed. I mean, it's honestly, it's like the Luke Perry thing, it's just with a different intent in mind. Obviously, Luke Perry was, let's bring in the younger audience that's going to know who Luke Perry is and be excited about Luke Perry being in the film. Ian Holm this gives us some credibility in terms of being a more serious film.
It's like if you put Sam Jackson in any movie, you know that people are going to see it. You put Leo in a movie, people are going to go see it.
Oh, without a doubt.
If you told me that Sir Ian Holm was in pretty much any movie, I'd be like, okay, well, I'm going to go watch that because I love him.
Absolutely.
We've talked about 3 ingredients so far. We've talked about the compelling story, the director, and a stellar cast.
So now it's time for nudity.
Yes. What?
Wait, what?
Are you Chat GPT? Do you have pictures of me too?
Would you like to bring Sky to the line?
No, decline. So now let's talk about the last secret ingredient, which makes a good movie. The fans. Me, Sean, all you toasticles, without fans to see a movie and generate the buzz, a movie's not going to go anywhere. There's a lot of good movies out there that didn't go anywhere because they didn't have the fans that they needed to get the project going. We're going to go back to the Greeks, like Plato.
Jesus Christ.
We're going full circle here.
Man.
If you think of a movie like the games in the Colosseum, the movie is the gladiator, under the knife of another gladiator. The critics are the audience, and the fans, like you and me, are Caesar. When it comes down to it, Caesar may take into consideration what the audience says, but the fate of the gladiator belongs to Caesar. The reason I say this is because initially the critics were very mixed on this movie, and it didn't look like it was going to do well.
Jesus, this is a badass metaphor.
Some, not all, felt the plot was too convoluted, the pacing was off, the story made no sense, and if you can believe it, some people found Chris Tucker's performance to be way too over the top and irritating. The visuals and the performance of the cast were praised, but the opinions of everyone was divided. It wasn't a blockbuster when it came out, which is shocking to me. It made $263.9 million on a $90 to $100 million budget, which means that they made double what they put into it, but if you go by the logic of Hollywood, that's not a successful movie, which is kind of crazy to me.
But that's like a little bonkers, but sure.
Yeah. This is where us, the fans, Caesar, comes in. We decided not to listen to the naysayers, the audience, and have turned this movie into a cult classic where it has been named one of the best by numerous people, continuing to find ways to connect with even newer audiences on TikTok. I was scrolling through TikTok a couple weeks back, which actually was the reason I wanted to do this movie, because it was just popping up with more and more people posting about this movie. The fans can make or break a movie, and in the case of The Fifth Element, I can most definitely say we made this movie.
Nice. Good for us.
Now we've been on quite a journey here, and I want to touch on one honorable mention in the what makes a good movie category.
Please continue, Caesar.
The soundtrack. This movie has a very ethereal and industrial rockish soundtrack. I'm going to play a little snippet here so they can hear that.
Nice.
Which really helps you immerse yourself into the movie. There's one particular song I want to talk about that really drives this point home, and most of us will already know what I'm talking about. The Diva Dance.
Oh, of course, yeah. I'm thinking, which song? Like a fucking idiot. Like, yeah, of course, the song.
Yeah, the song. Eric Serra, who was the composer for this and also the singer of the ending song Little Light of Love, mentioned that because the diva was an alien and was supposed to do things that humans couldn't, he purposely composed a song that humans couldn't naturally sing.
Interesting.
When the opera singer Inva Mula, who provided the singing voice for the diva, looked at the sheet music, she just said, "This is impossible." And she's French, so she was like, "This is impossible."
C'est impossible. C'est impossible. Well, how do you say impossible? French.
Impossible.
Impossible. There we go. C'est impossible.
To which Eric said, "Yeah, I know." Because he knew that they could just edit the segments together to achieve what he had in mind. And one of the things I find almost too hard to believe is that the entire diva dance, like the entire scene, was almost destroyed after the negatives fell out of the airplane on the tarmac, like as they were being rushed to the end to like basically be put together for production, and were run over by a forklift.
Oh,
So like the team came and saw that their reels were just in this trash can, and they almost lost that entire scene, which would have been awful. Because the diva dance is one of the most remembered scenes in the movie. It starts off with the diva being revealed to an audience who is mesmerized. And the reason you get that is because they never showed the look of the diva or how she was even supposed to sound to anyone in that audience.
Oh, really? You don't mean within the context of the film. You mean like the actual people that were sitting in there.
The actual cast had never seen her before. So the reaction that you get was genuine. And it starts off with her singing an aria from Luce du Lammermoor. I probably fucked that up, but it's okay. You guys can fix that.
Luce something French.
Luce du Doce.
Something Italian or French. Got it.
Anyway, it's an aria called Il Dolce Suono. Before she launches into a rock opera type of song with some crazy dance moves. And we almost lost that first look of the cast just really being enamored by this. And it's the soundtrack, it's the songs, it's everything like that it just makes this an honorable mention, because I'm trying to picture this movie without some of that music that gets put in here, and it wouldn't have been as cool. Like Corbin getting out of his apartment and just going like... It's just really great to me. So Sean, we now have our 4 ingredients. We've gone and, like I said,
we're ready to make some toast. We've got the ingredients for toast, and we can make it.
All of these things together have created, in my opinion, one of the best sci-fi movies that's out there, at least from the 90s. And it's one of those things where if you had just one of these things missing, this movie wouldn't have done so well. I personally, like I said, it's on my list of movies that I watch all the time. It's like Tombstone. Tombstone's another movie that if it's on TV, I'm going to sit there and watch the entire fucking thing. If I'm watching The Fifth Element, like if I see even a little snippet, I'm sitting down and watching the entire thing.
So you're saying when Fifth Element comes on, you say to yourself, okay, I'll be your Huckleberry.
I'll be your Huckleberry. But it's just one of those things that at the end of the day, when I sought out to answer my question, why did this movie do so well? It wasn't one thing. It was a combination of the cast, the story, the director, and just, in my opinion, the fans that really made this movie what it is and keeps it going. Something that we can continuously enjoy. And I know how we talk in every single episode at the very end about where you can watch this. Watch it online, honestly, on a site called thearchive.com. I normally would not do this, but this movie has meant so much to different people. They put it on a site, on a public platform where anyone can experience it.
Nice.
So, Toasticles, this is a very different episode from what you're used to. Usually we talk about pretty much every facet of the plot. We go a little bit more in depth on some of the cast and different things like that. But I really wanted to give you guys something that's a little bit different, a different take on what we've been doing, what we actually think about movies. And please tell us in the comments, is this something that you guys like? Is this something you want us to continue? Because I'm going to tell you guys right now, I'm going to be completely transparent. This was one of the most fun things that I've done during the entire time we've done these episodes. Being able to really ask myself a question and be able to investigate why I felt this way about this movie, why this movie did this and why it did this, and what was the real answer to the question. I answered it as best I could, but there's still so many different things that could be said about this. And I really want to continue this. I want to find out more movies. I want to do different things with a lot of these other ones. I want to go back and touch on some of the previous movies that we've done and really ask myself some of the questions about that.
Well, thank you for taking us on this journey, AJ. This was incredibly informative. I learned a lot about this film. This is definitely one of my favorites from the 90s as well, and I'm glad I got to hear some of this stuff, particularly about giant blue opera singers. I think that's my thing. Well, our music is created by Augusto Denise, logo by Design World, social media by the future Mrs. Multipass, mixing and editing by IPTT Studios, and special thanks to studio dog Joe the Boxer.
And we want to hear from you in your own slice of toast. Tell us about the films you think we and others should see, actors to showcase, or topics to discuss. You can reach us on Instagram or TikTok at IPTT_podcast, emails at IPTTpodcast@gmail.com, or interact with us directly through the Spotify app.
And if you ever find yourself missing one of the key ingredients to making a great sci-fi film from the 90s, remember,
You are Caesar, and you can get more toast.
render unto Caesar what is his. Thanks for listening.
The first time, Chris, I've seen the outfit, you say, oh my god.